Hello everyone, good morning and welcome to today's The Hindu News Analysis. Myself Nitin K. Biju, I'll be appearing for the civil service interview this year. In today's news analysis, we'll be discussing about 6 important news articles covered in the Hindu newspaper today. Going to the first page, lockdown extended, states will take a call on infection zones. So, the government has eased the interstate travel, but the curbs on malls, religious gatherings to stay. Also, the lockdown has been extended till May 31st, but greater flexibility is given to the states in deciding the red, green, and orange zones of the COVID 19 intensity. Also, the center has allowed considerable movement between interstates, movement of buses and cars, but with the consent of both the state governments. Also, delivery of non-essential items through online shopping platforms are allowed, and even the 33% restriction on the workforce in offices is also done away with. But the metro systems, domestic and international air travel, they will come to continue to remain suspended, and special trains will continue to operate on limited routes. So these are the this is the list of what is allowed and what is not allowed. You can just go through it. So this is not that important from UPSC perspective, but as the most important news today, I'm discussing it. Also, coming to the second article, Sender throws open all sectors to private players. So, here on the right hand side, I have mentioned the syllabus also. It comes under GS3 economy and comma interview purpose. So, for GS3, the question can be asked on the involvement of private sector, more privatization, uh, allowing private players in the strategic sectors, etc. And coming to interview perspective, you should have a proper opinion on what your idea is on privatization in sectors like space, defense, etc. I mean, not privatization, like allowing private players into these sectors. You should have a proper opinion on it. Now, the center has agreed to demands from states to hike the borrowing limits to 3% to 5% of the GDP. So we know that the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act, it puts a limit on the states also on their how much they can borrow. That is the fiscal deficit. The fiscal deficit is kept at a 3%, right? So in order to fight the corona pandemic in a better manner, the states have to borrow more money. So, in order to borrow more money, this 3% limit on fiscal deficit should be increased, right? So, the center has to allow the states to increase the 3% limit on fiscal deficit to 5%. So, that is a good step. And the Mandrega gets 40,000 crore in the finance minister's fifth tranche. So, that is a good step to boost the rural employment. As we all know, the migrant workers have started returning to their native places, right? So they should be accommodated and given employment in their respective states. So Manrega is a very good step to give employment in the rural area. So the allocation to Manrega has been increased, which is a very good step. Now, the government has also welcomed private companies into every sector of the industry while limiting public sector enterprises to strategic sector only. So, this is a very important issue, as we have talked earlier. For interview purpose, you have to have an opinion, even especially for the people who are having public administration as the optional. So, this role of private sector and public sector becomes more important in the interview perspective. Also, the total package amounts to almost 21 lakh crore by the center's accounts, but it is heavily on credit related measures. We have already seen that. We have already seen in the previous news that there are many credit guarantee measures which are undertaken by the government. For example, credit guarantees to of around 3 lakh crore to MSMEs. So, like that, right? So, these credit guarantee measures, as well as the previous liquidity enhancing measures by the RBI, including everything, the total package comes to around 21 lakh crore, which is 1 lakh crore more than the 20 lakh crore which is proposed. Also, coming to another important news, over 5,000 cases recorded on Sunday. So this is the single largest hike in the country. Also, the largest number of cases came from Maharashtra, which recorded a highest single day increase of 2,347 COVID cases. Also, the doubling rate has is being shifted to around 13.8 days. So these are the important news in the first page. Also here you can see the different sectors as well as the allocation which are given under it. So here you can see states borrowing has increased from 6 lakh crore, that is 3% of GSDP. GSDP stands for gross state domestic product. So it has been increased to 5%, right? That 5% comes to around 10 lakh crore. Also Manrega has been allocated 40,000 crore. So these and disinvestment, coming to disinvestment, public sector firms in non-strategic sectors to be privatized. No more than 4 public sector undertakings to remain in strategic sectors. So these things will be notified soon. So you need to follow this news articles. Now, coming to the first article, first main article of the day, getting India back to the Afghan high table. So, this is very important for prelims perspective because the geography related to Afghanistan, the bordering countries, the geography, all those stuffs will be important for prelims perspective because map based questions are being asked more. And under GS2 in mains, it comes under international relations. And coming to the interview perspective, the role of India in the Afghanistan peace process might be asked. You might be asked, what is your opinion? Should India engage talk with Taliban or should India continue to support only the Afghanistan government? So these kind of questions can be expected in the interview. Now, coming to the article, so India, so the thing is like India didn't want to open connections with all the political groups. Like India didn't want to engage with Taliban and all. Instead, India continued to cling to Afghanistan President Ashraf Ghani, right? So India, even as many other countries started talks with Afghanistan, India avoided every talks with Afghanistan. Prime Minister even in the recent election, recent Afghanistan election, which was conducted, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated Mr. Ghani for winning the elections in December 2019. So this is in spite of the fact that most of the countries maintained a silence after the Afghanistan election. They didn't go to congratulate and because they know that the political situation might not be much stable for Ashraf Ghani, right? So also, after that, what happened? The election result was rejected by Mr. Ghani's main rival, that is Abdullah Abdullah. It led to two simultaneous swearing-ins. Both Mr. Ghani and Mr. Abdullah took over oath as the president. So the situation became very bad from that time. Also, the international community ultimately supported Mr. Ghani, but qualified it with an insistence that he enters into real power sharing agreement with Mr. Abdullah. So this is a new current affair topic that because this agreement has been reached as of now. Mr. Ashraf Ghani and Mr. Abdullah Abdullah, they have decided for a power sharing agreement where Mr. Ghani will be the continuing to the president, but Mr. Abdullah will be having a considerable say in the government with many cabinet ministers from Mr. Abdullah side. Okay. So and coming to the UN organized meeting, the United Nations Secretariat organized a meeting on Afghanistan where it invited six current physical neighbors of Afghanistan. They are China, Pakistan, Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan. This is important for preliminary purpose. In addition, invitations were extended to the United States, Russia, and the Ghani government. So here we can see that India is avoided from this negotiation also, though India shares a physical boundary with Afghanistan that we'll be seeing in the coming slide. New Delhi has played a role in Afghanistan reconstruction since the Taliban were ousted from the country in 2001 to after 9/11. So, despite this, India has been avoided from the discussions, right? So, also Salme Khalilzad, he is the US appointed special envoy to Afghanistan. He told that India should directly engage with Afghanistan. India should talk directly to Afghanistan, discuss terror concerns directly. He also noted that despite India's contribution to Afghanistan's economic development, it does not have a place in international diplomacy on Afghanistan. So here Khalil Saad, he wants India to directly engage with Taliban also, which is against India's stand as of now. So that is what that, and this is the reason. This is one of the reason why the international community is avoiding India in the Afghanistan talks because India don't want to talk with Afghanistan. So they find, and international community is seeing I mean India doesn't want to talk with Taliban. I mean, so but international community is seeing Taliban to be an important player in the Afghanistan peace process. So this is why the international community is avoiding India in the Taliban Afghanistan peace process. Also, the US wants India to have a more active role in the peace process. Clearly, as the most significant power in the region, India should have ensured that it had a place on the table and should have devised ways to achieve that end. This is especially so because Afghanistan impacts on India's interests, especially its security concerns, because Taliban and all have a bearing on India's security concerns, especially in the Kashmir and all, right? So why did the powers not consider India's participation vital for the present peacemaking efforts? As we already discussed, why it is because it clearly feels that by avoiding open contacts with Taliban, India has reduced its role in the international diplomatic efforts. That the US is currently crucially dependent on Pakistan for the successful implementation of Taliban deal. We all know that Taliban is actually instated as a puppet of the Pakistan government. It was mostly under the Pakistan government control earlier, though presently Taliban is trying to be away from Pakistan. Taliban is telling that we are more independent to Pakistan, but still Pakistan has a greater control over Taliban's powers, right? So this is one of the reason why India is kept away from the negotiations, because Pakistan wants India to be away from all of this, right? So this is one of the reason why India is away from the discussion tables. That is the role of Pakistan. In such a situation, it was essential for India to have maintained its strong link with the Afghanistan government, built and supported its traditional Afghan allies. Perhaps this was discreetly resumed, but also establishment of open lines of communication with the Taliban. So this was the need of our India. The article is telling that India should have started its talks with Taliban also. This was especially because they were informally conveying that India should not consider them as Pakistan's puppets, and also because they had gained international recognition. So here Taliban themselves is telling that don't consider us as Pakistan's puppet. So this was a signal for India to engage in the talks, but India didn't go for the talks. Also, it is sad that despite all that India has done in the Afghanistan over the past 18 years, since the Taliban were ousted from Kabul in 2001, it finds itself on the margins of international diplomacy on Afghanistan. It is a reminiscent of the time in 1990s. In 1990s also, India was avoided from the talks, right? At that time also, it was on Pakistan's insistence. India was considered a problem and kept out of the crucial forums on Afghanistan. But what is the difference from 1990s and present time? That time, Iran and Russia also stayed away from the talks. So India had support. India had support from Iran and Russia also. But now what happened is there are no countries on the horizon which are really opposed to Taliban. All countries except India are wanting to talk to Taliban. So now India is really isolated compared to 1990s. So the way forward is India needs to take corrective diplomatic action even at this late stage and even in the time of COVID-19. It must begin openly talking to Taliban and with all political groups in the country. So this is what the article says as the way forward. So whether India should take a like talk to Taliban or no or not, it is a very big decision. It is a very big strategic decision, right? So it should be taken after considering all the facts. Now, I have already told you that Afghanistan shares a physical border with India, though many of the international communities doesn't allow that, because in the previous article we have seen that the United Nations considered only six countries which are current physical border with Afghanistan, right? But the why India doesn't share a current physical border with Afghanistan? It's because of the reason that you can see here the area marked circled here and the area marked in red. The area marked in the red line is the actual border between India and Afghanistan. But we can see that that border comes under the part of Kashmir which is administered by Pakistan, that is POK, right? So that is the reason why India currently doesn't share a border with Pakistan, but border with Afghanistan. But considering Jammu Kashmir as a whole, India shares around 105-kilometer border with Afghanistan. So if the question is asked on whether India shares a border with Afghanistan, then for in the prelims, then definitely answer should be yes. Yes, India shares with a border with Afghanistan. That is the stand of the government, because Kashmir is a part of India, right? Completely. So that is for the prelims perspective. Coming to the editorial of the day, Farmgate in focus. So this comes under GS3 under agriculture reforms. And for interview perspective, we should be focusing on the challenges faced by the agriculture sector, as well as the reforms which are focused, and what could be the way forward. So these areas should be focused for interview perspective. uh, the center's objective of using the COVID-19 crisis to usher in an Atmanirbhar Bharat. So, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman focused on Friday's tranche on announcements on farm sector reform. So, the Friday's announcement were focused on farm sector reforms. And the centerpiece was a 1 lakh crore fund to finance the agriculture infrastructure projects at the farm gate and the produce aggregation point. So the infrastructure of the farm sector is supposed to be reformed through this 1 lakh crore fund. So this is a very welcome step, because the channels to it channels the funds to agriculture cooperative, farmer produce organizations, rural entrepreneurs, and startups. It is also encouraging. The minister also unveiled a 10,000 crore scheme to promote the formalization of the micro food enterprises. This is also a very welcome scheme. She also suggested a cluster approach focused in different regions on signature produce. For example, if one region is like very good in producing onion, or like any such produce, that is called signature produce, right? So a cluster development of that area will be developed. So that is also another welcome step. Ms. Sitaraman said the goal was to assist unorganized enterprises in scaling up food safety standards to earn the product certification and build brand value. So this cluster approach will help in both certification as well as building brand value. This will be something similar to geographical indication tag sort of thing. Not exactly that, but a measure which is similar to that regional development of clusters, right? So the package is more focusing on the long term rather than the present relief, right? So anyway, there are some other challenges also. One is the Essential Commodities Act. So some commodities have been deregulated from the Essential Commodities Act of 1955. Which are those commodities? They are pulses, cereals, oilseeds, edible oils, onions, and potatoes. So there are some challenges to it. The law has nonetheless remained a vital tool in the government's armory for protecting consumers from the irrational volatility of the prices of the essentials by tamping down on black marketeers and hoarders. So, what the government used to do using this Essential Commodities Act, they used to control the prices on this essential items like cereals and all, right? Rice, wheat, etc. But now what happens is the volatility is increased. The volatility is increased, and there is a risk of future inflationary food prices spikes because they are deregulated. This is central. The government doesn't have a control on that except on national calamities. Also, while the measures also seeks to bypass the APMC regime through a central law that would allow farmers the freedom to sell across state borders. The other proposes a framework for farmers to enter into pre-sowing contract, like that is contract farming between the sellers and buyers, right? This also, so these measures, both these measures, once enacted, could privilege market forces without necessarily safeguarding food security. So that is the challenge here. The role of the government has been reduced now. The private players are coming more into the agriculture market. One is through deregulation of the essential commodities, another is through contract farming. So these factors will include more marketizing, more private players into the agriculture market. Thereby, the food security might be affected because the government's role has reduced. So that is what the article talks about, and these are the measures which has been taken in the farm sector in the Friday trans, right? So one is agri marketing reforms. We have seen that bypassing of mandis, barrier free industry trade, all those stuffs. Revamp, then comes the revamping of essential commodities. Then the third main aspect is agriculture produce price and quality assurance. So here they'll be focusing on contract farming, all those stuffs. So you can just take a screenshot of this so that you can revise it better. Now coming to the next article, labor rights are in a free fall. So this comes under prelims. You should focus on the labor laws, the main labor laws, the codification of it into four major codes. The codes are on labor, wages, social security, then comes occupational safety and industrial relations and all. So these four codes should be by heart. You should be knowing about it from the prelims perspective. And under GS2 it comes under polity. And for interview perspective, you have to have an opinion whether the state governments bringing in ordinance to relax the labor laws, whether it is good or whether it is bad. You have to analyze it from the economic aspect also. You have to analyze it from the rights perspective and all, right? So this is a very important article for from all the perspective of the examination. As India slows down to lift its nationwide lockdown under compulsion of reviving the economy, labor rights are disappearing at an astonishing pace. So states like Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, and Gujarat, they are suspending labor laws for varying lengths of time. So undemocratic introduction. This strategy visualizes affecting an economic turnaround through improvement of India's rank in the ease of doing business. Right. This is the reason governed by the state government. So the ease of doing business will improve, and the FDI will increase, and thus the companies which are exiting China, they will come to India. So that is what the plan is. And you can see the India's rank has improved from 130 in 2016 to 63 in 2019. So these measures are ostensibly to improve the industrial environment in the country. Also, you know that the four labor codes, there were four labor codes which are already in the process of bringing. They are the wages, industrial relations, social security, and occupational safety, health, and working conditions. So these have to be by hearted from the film's perspective. But what is surprising is the undemocratic manner. The undemocratic manner is by bringing the ordinances and notifying rules instead of having a proper discussion on relaxation of the labor rules, right? So there should have been more discussion on this topic before bringing any changes. Further, even though the working hours are extended, there is no provision for overtime pay in states like Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat. So this is another challenge which is creating burden on the working class. Also, the UP ordinance has exempted employers from complying with the Minimum Wages Act of 1948. So the governments are not obliged to give the minimum wages also under this new ordinance. However, the codes on wages makes a distinction between minimum wage, national minimum wage, and the national floor wage. That is, we are talking about the code. One of the code is industry code on wages, right? So, so what happened in the code of wages is that the minimum wage calculated by the government appointed committee was around 375 rupees a day. But the national floor wage, it says that you have to give only 175 176 rupees per day. So and the state governments are told that the minimum wages that the worker should receive, it should be just more than the national floor wage. So what is the use in putting a minimum wage, national minimum wage at 375 per day, when the state government have to just give above the floor wage, national floor wage, which is only 176 per day. So these are some of the loopholes in the labor codes, where the industries will be able to exploit the workers more, right? So here also the workers are being exploited. Also, the UP ordinance also exempts employers from complying with the Industrial Disputes Act. So thus, if the Industrial Disputes Act is avoided, then the employers can hire and fire the workers at their will. So again, this is not helping the laborers. Also, checking coming to the Madhya Pradesh ordinance, it exempted factories employing less than 50 workers from regular inspections and allowed third party inspections. So the inspections will also be reduced in factories which are employing less than 50 workers. So again, it is a step which is against the laborers. The Madhya Pradesh ordinance further states that for new establishment, provisions guiding industrial dispute resolution, strikes, lockdown, trade unions, etc., will cease to operate. So the workers, usually when if something happens, then the workers can strike, right? So as per the new ordinance, the workers are not allowed to strike also. Therefore, it seems that the novel corona pandemic simply provided a window to aggressively fulfill the long term agenda of diluting the labor laws. Also, you can see that Madhya Pradesh are relaxing the labor laws for 1,000 days, and UP is relaxing it for 3 years, right? So they are trying to project themselves to be investor friendly. But will such suspension of labor rights aimed at reducing labor costs stimulate private investment and ensure recovery? The uh, the data shows otherwise. Actually, the banking on private investment, that is depending on private investment for economic recovery when the economy is wrapped in acute uncertainty, is essentially a futile exercise, because we can see that, for example, like private investment will be very less now. We can't depend on private sector on revival of the economy, because I mean the UP government, the MP government, they are planning that private invest to increase the private investment by relaxing the laborers. But history shows that depending on private sector uh, will be a futile exercise. Government should provide more support. That is what the article is telling. In other times, if it was a normal time, a violent attack on the fundamental rights on the workers would lead to widespread protests and massive strikes, right? But as we all know, both instruments are toothless now. Why? Because protests are prohibited by the lockdown rules, and the strikes are meaningless when the production days are already low. Already the companies are shut there. Then what is the use of a strike now? So now also the protest cannot happen due to lockdown. So this exposes the authoritarian state of the nature of the state. This is essential. I mean, the article says that every section of the society should come together to protest against this. This is essential for destroying the rights of one section of the society, makes the rights of the other sections of the society vulnerable as well. So this is a very much critical article on the government. So here, just take the facts away from it. You can write it under challenges faced by the recent labor reforms, right? So you can write the points under that in the main answers. Now, coming to the next article, peaking. This is related to the COVID-19 cases which are being increasing day by day. This comes under GS2 public health, then under interview also. In interview, the question can be whether the lockdown has been successful in controlling the number of cases. So here you have to make a stance, right? You have to say whether the lockdown has been successful, it has been not been successful, or it has been partially successful. So this article will help you frame a answer on that. In 106, since the first lab confirmed novel coronavirus case was reported on Jan 30th, India surpassed China's tally of 84,000. We have seen that uh, China's total cases was around 84,000, and India has surpassed it. So as of May 15th, India had over 85,500 cases, and the death toll stood at 2,752 as against 4,633 in China. So compared to the death toll, India's numbers are less, but compared to the cases, the numbers are increasing. Also, there are only 10 other countries that are having more cases than India. At the same time, the toll in the US alone went past the total number of cases in China. So here we are talking about the death toll in US. The number of people who have died in the US due to COVID-19 cases have is more than the number of cases. The number of cases which has occurred in China. So this is a very bad situation in the United States, right? Also, coming to India's case, despite the country being under lockdown since almost end March, the number of fresh cases and deaths reported each day has continued to rise steadily. On an average, over 3,600 cases have been reported daily since May 8. But we have seen that in the last 24 hours, it rise to around 5,000 cases in a single day. This is of serious concern, as contrary to the advice of WHO, India has not fully utilized the precious lockdown period to increase manifold the number of tests carried out daily while simultaneously tracing, isolating, and treating COVID-19 patients. So here, India has is still way behind in terms of testing, right? So though the lockdown, India could have utilized the lockdown in a better manner by increasing the testing, which has not happened except for some states. Also, unfortunately, even as the number of cases has crossed 94,700, India is yet to begin investigating community transmission despite the strongly suggestive finding. So, community transmission is the third stage of the COVID-19 transmission, right? So, India is continuously denying community transmission as of now, irrespective of the findings that suggest that community transmissions might have happened at least in some regions of the country. Given the high rate of asymptomatic transmission, high viral resurgence is inevitable when the lockdown is lifted. So, as we all know, though the lockdown is extended till May 31st, there are considerable relaxations given to many economic sectors. Like most of the economic sectors has been opened, right? And even after May 31st, when the lockdown might be lifted, the asymptomatic cases are more, right? So the total coronavirus cases will increase drastically. So it is not the states that report more cases that is a cause of concern, but the states that have reported fewer. So if the states are testing more people, and if that is the reason why the number of cases are increasing, then that is not an issue. But if the testing rate itself is less and that is resulting in the low number of cases, then that is a bigger concern, right? Because the transmission will happen, and the community transmission will also take place. Active case findings and the testing of most people with a travel history early during the lockdown could have been one reason why Karnataka has reported fewer cases, because Karnataka was able to actively test the people who came from outside the country, right? In the initial cases itself, that's why Karnataka is able to control the cases. Similarly, coming to Andhra Pradesh also, people who are having a travel history early on, they have been there have been proper surveillance on them, and that is also a reason why Andhra Pradesh have also uh, uh, reported fewer than 2400 cases so far. Now the cases are more in Maharashtra, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and West Bengal. So it can be due to good surveillance, so but that won't be the case, because there have been cases of low surveillance in these states. But mostly it is the case that the virus has spread in the community, at least in specific regions. If the latter is the case, if there is community transmission, then India can expect huge numbers in the coming weeks. So all the states, including Kerala, which has contained it in a good manner, so all the states should be alert, and they should not be complacent, right? So this is what the article editorial is talking about. Now coming to the other important articles in the day, you go through where is the health stimulus package. That is an article under in page 7. It asks about uh, the stimulus given to the health sector. So you can, and it is a nicely written article where they have compared the health package with a cricket match. You can just read it. Coming to the second article, Odisha braces for Amphan impact. So this is Amphan is a cyclonic impact, which is a cyclonic storm which is expected to come to Odisha in the coming days. So and this is supposed to affect the COVID-19 affected districts in a like in an increasing manner. So it's like a double burden on the state government, controlling COVID-19 also and controlling the cyclone Amphan also. So you can read it in page 10. Coming to the third article, over 42,000 under trials released under in page 10. So here to ensure that social distancing is happening in the jails, many of the under trials, around 42,000 of them has been released from the prison, so that the prisons can be decongested to ensure safety measures during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now coming to fourth article, we have already discussed the editorial, the article related to it. Afghan president rival sign power sharing deal. Ghani to retain presidency. So this is about the power sharing agreement between Afghan president Ashraf Ghani and his rival Abdullah Abdullah. So we have already discussed a part of it in the first article, right? So you can read the related news in page 14. So that's all for today's news articles. I hope you like the video. Please press the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share the video with your friends. Have a great day. Thank you.